Hello and welcome in Romania. We are very honored to have you here at the George Enescu Festival.
Great pleasure for me to be back.
To be back, yes. We've talked about before this recording, and you've told me that you've been here in Romania, and I want you to tell me a few things about how you feel here and with this wonderful and very renowned festival.
Well, to us in England, it seems such a generous idea to bring in so many orchestras from around the world. This is,
Yeah.
I think this is unique to have this many orchestras touring in. Very grand.
Yes,
very amazing.
Yes, every 2 years is such a joy for us, for Romania, to have these big orchestras and these wonderful artists here. And it's such a joy also for the public, because we get in contact with all of you, and this is such amazing time for us to spend here at Sala Palatului and Romanian Athenaeum. I started a series with Enescu Festival that it's called the Podcasts of George Enescu Festival and Romanian National Television. And the profile of these podcasts have somehow the inspiration from the TEDx talks. And all the artists that come here talk about their own experience in life. And it's important in this interview that the viewers would learn something about being a musician or having, I don't know, bad projects perhaps, or something that didn't go well through your career. And I want to talk about these things because it's very important that young generation to find out that there is always hope, and they have to believe in their dreams. So tell me, along all your career, are there any moments that you, I don't know, maybe wondered if you do the right thing?
Well, my career as an Martenot player is relatively short, because I did not begin to play the instrument until the early 1980s. Mm-hmm. So that's 40 years. Whereas for most musicians, they begin in their very early childhood to play the instrument that they continue to play their life long. However, having said that, the instruments that I did play as a very young child actually have all fed into what I needed when I came to the Martenot, because it combines a great deal of keyboard, and I was first a pianist when I was very young, also string technique, listening, playing in tune, and I was a violinist briefly and then a violist, but principally singing, the singing voice, because really the aspect of the Ond that is most important and which I think people respond to quickest is the sense of it being a voice with an enormous range, and also the ability to sing very loud or whisper quiet, but never having to take a breath. So it's sort of like a superhuman voice. I adored the sound close up. I'm fascinated by the way the sound is produced. The instrument is extremely heavy and extremely fragile. So yes, there have been many times when I have wondered whether my mother always used to joke that I should have perhaps taken up some much lighter, replaceable instrument, because the Ond is so delicate and there are now so few instruments of the original Martenot, which is the instrument that I have here for you. I have two keyboards in my dressing room because the keyboard is the most delicate part, but they are extremely rare and special, and that is a lot of pressure. It's also a lot of pressure on the people who transport it for me, and you know, crazy accidents can happen, and there aren't many that have not happened to me over the nearly 40 years that I've played it. But in general terms, there's nothing I'd rather do. So.
Yeah, wonderful answer, yes. Usually young musicians have their career also with many contests, and it is said there are, I don't know, two ways of putting it. It's not good to go competition because music must not be viewed as a sport or something like this. And the other part that says that it's good to go in a competition because you can challenge yourself. How do you feel about this?
Well, luckily the world of competitions for the Martenot does not really exist. There must be competitions at the end of courses at the conservatoires in Paris, which teach it, but that was not my world. I mean, it sounds very trite, but for me, each concert is a competition for myself. Yeah. Well, not really so much for myself, but to bring the best of myself in the piece to the orchestra around me, the conductor, but obviously also to the audience. I am more anxious now as a player than I used to be. I think some of that, I'm sure many people you've spoken to, I suspect some of that is to do with not having played for the last few years. And in that quiet time, having understood actually what pressures we have always been under. But when you stay very, very busy, you float doing the thing you always did. When you stop, you realize, goodness, our life is full of pressure, full of unexpected challenges.
Yes.
And also this year particularly, because my piece has not been done for so long, I've played it many times and I've been all over the world. And each time that means the instrument, shipping, who knows what. So I think if I had also to compete, I might say, you know what, that's enough. But I think that, I think that probably one of the best reasons to compete in a field so crowded as the string world and the piano world is just to be heard, just to be heard by professionals. Even if you don't win the contest, somebody in that jury will remember what a beautiful player you were and will talk to colleagues. And if you don't say yes to things, nothing happens. You have to take the chances.
Yes.
But I think that the sport element must be exhausting, not just for the young students, but also for the parents who are doing all the driving to lessons. It's like having to take your child to the gym at crack of dawn. I mean, it does become much like a sport life. And you have to keep yourself so fit. And the idea of the pianist's brain with all that music memorized, to me that is quite extraordinary. I still find, I can't imagine having so much music in my head when you think of how many concertos are locked inside the head of a pianist. Two hands, and all the interaction with the orchestra. I mean, that's somehow phenomenal. That's one of the most remarkable things that a human can do, human memory for music.
Yeah. You know what is nice? When you are on stage, you artists, you put your all feelings and emotions in that piece of work that you play. Is this a kind of vulnerability that you bring with you on stage towards the public?
That's a good question. I don't think that it feels the same every time. Things in a piece as big as Turangalila, which is maybe 75, 80 minutes long, there are all kinds of things which are going to be different every time. So in a sense, we're all just moving along, making the piece happen. on the whole, it's not too easy to be distracted. But I mean, inevitably, if something is distracting, after a while it kind of wears you down. I gave a concert with this orchestra last week in Edinburgh, and this is not completely a non sequitur, I was surprised at how quiet the audience was. Later, it turned out they had no programs for the concert, so no one had anything
really? To do with the hands.
To do with their hands, and it was like, so still. And at one point I looked out and there was someone in the front row who was just sitting sort of bowed head, and I thought, oh, he's really listening. But of course, without a program, he could have been in despair, because if he had never heard the piece before, it's really long, it has many movements.
Yeah.
He would have had absolutely no guide. But on the whole, a noisy audience can be distracting.
Yes.
That is, I think, all of us are vulnerable to that. What else? I mean, some halls are difficult halls to play in. There'll be peculiar reverberation, sort of echoes. The sound comes from strange places that can create a vulnerability. But in general, I would like to feel that we all come out saying to ourselves that we're going to do the very best we can today.
Yes.
It might not be the greatest performance we ever give, but that is going to be our intention always. We're going to do our absolute best.
Yeah.
And over 100 people, even the sense of us all coming out is quite an exciting thing as an audience member, I think. You see a lot of light in our eyes.
Yes, exactly. I've asked you this question because I wanted to go to my next question. How important is the state of mind when you come on stage? This is the question, and your answer will be for the younger musicians that are at the beginning of their career. And of course, they go on stage, they have to play, but some of them, being very young, maybe they are afraid of the public or afraid that they would be wrong or something. How important is the state of mind when walking on stage?
I don't know whether you can learn to be different from how you naturally are as a person. And my guess is that when you're young and you've been given confidence by your teachers and your family, you actually arrive perhaps with more confidence than those of us who have knocked around the musical world. But having said that, I think to have crippling stage fright would be truly, truly a challenge. And I know that there are ways that you can be maybe hypnotized. There are ways of calming a person down. But it might be that some element of fear could make the performance more exciting, but it would be no fun to experience it. And I know there are some performers who really are in great distress before they perform. Even performers who've been playing for many, many, many years, it doesn't leave them as a state of mind. And I can't believe that that's actually really very useful. It must exhaust the body to have for your brain to fight your natural nervousness. Also, nervousness, it's in your hands as well. So. And that's all part of the sense of wanting to be kind of in yourself, but also kind of out of yourself. I think the more you think about it, the more nerve-wracking it becomes. I suspect there's probably a personality which particularly suits being out on a stage. And let's hope that that personality finds a way of having a thing to show.
Yes.
Because it's a great way of channeling confidence.
But if you have a bad day on stage,
you have to move on.
Yes, it's not the end of your career.
Have to move on.
Yeah.
And in most
it's a lesson, maybe.
In most cases, it's usually a malfunction of the instrument or something else has gone wrong. It's not just you to which this has happened. No, you honestly, you would just have to just put it behind you. Because we're just human, you know?
Yes, of
and
course.
Audiences are extremely responsive to difficulties. I remember as a young person going to a concert with a great singer. It was a small chamber concert, and she started the song with the wrong words, the words for another verse, and she stopped and apologized, and you could feel the audience moving towards her with warmth, and
that's wonderful. Yes,
it was human to make this tiny error, you know. Couldn't have mattered less.
Yeah, it's true.
But of course, you know, in terms of one's sense of oneself, it's a little setback. But no, I mean, we're just humans playing for other humans.
Yes, true, very true, and wonderful answer. Yes. Do you have an advice for young musicians that want to study Undele Martenot?
Well, the difficulty still, although less so than when I began, has been the scarcity of the instrument itself. However, there are versions of the Undele Martenot now being made in Paris, also in Canada, and if you have the time, go to a conservatoire in Paris and study the Undele with one of the great players there. Treat it as you would treat studying any instrument. It wouldn't matter if you didn't come to it as a child, because, as I was saying earlier, the things which I'd learnt as a child on other instruments have all fed into my Undele Martenot playing. But find a teacher, find an instrument, rent an instrument if you can, because if you have no instrument to practice on, then you're not going to get better between your lessons. And that has been the reason why I have had no pupils, because there have been no spare instruments in England. But now the instrument is being built again. I think this will change.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Very welcome.